Welcome to this new episode of Make It Work, the series where we get to the point and make your code work as soon as possible. Today, we'll be discussing how to execute queries in your Java project. As of this point, you're supposed to be knowledgeable on how to connect your database to your Java project. If you aren't, kindly see my other video for its tutorial. To start off, we will need the following in order to execute queries in your project. We will run through them one at a time, and I'll try to explain their usage as we go along. I'm assuming you already know the basics on SQL queries, so I won't delve on the differences of each query. With that being said, we know that select statements returns a result whenever it is executed. Thus, we need an object that will hold said results. And that object will be what we call the result_set object. For now, we will initialize it with a null value. The next object we'll need is the statement object. This will hold the SQL query, specifically the select statement. This will be initialized by assigning the result of the create statement function from the connection object. The connection object was covered in our last video, so feel free to check it if my explanation confuses you. We will now assign a value to our result set. To do that, we will use the execute query function of our st variable. Remember that st is our statement object. The execute query function requires a string parameter. The string parameter will be our select statement. For this example, I'll be selecting all of the records from my orders table. Once this piece of code runs, the result set variable will receive all of our records from our database. At this point, you can do whatever you want with that data. But for the sake of checking if we did retrieve all of our records, we're going to print all of those records. To do that, we'll use the next function from our result set variable in our while loop. This means, as long as a record exists once the code checks what's next, the loop will continue. Inside our loop, we will start printing our records by using the getString function and providing the index number that we wish to print. The index number represents the column of the table. Based on our table, the first one will be the order ID, and so on and so forth. We can concatenate more strings to our print function if we wish to print more columns. This is not the ideal way to do this, but this is the way we'll do it today, just for the sake of this tutorial. Now that that is all set, let's run this code and see what happens. I'm expecting that this result will yield 2 columns, since we declared 2 getStrings. And there we have it. If we wish to gather more columns, we just need to concatenate more getString functions. Now that we have covered the select statement, we will now discuss insert, update, and delete statements. Unlike select statements, these three do not return any results, as they will only modify our data. Thus, we will use a different object for these three, instead of the statement object. This time, we will use the prepared statement object. Before we begin, here is the list of fields that my orders table is using. Kindly understand that the order ID field is set to automatically generate a value. Thus, we only need to provide values for the remaining fields. Now we declare a prepared statement object. We initialize it by assigning the result of the prepare statement function from the connection object. This said function may have one or more parameters. You may better understand what I mean if you're familiar with polymorphism. Anyway, the important parameter here is the string which will represent the SQL statement we wish to execute. For this example, we will use the insert statement. To make this tutorial faster, this will be the same way when you wish to execute an update and delete statement. All you have to do is to change the string parameter in the prepare statement function. We'll try that later on. First, let's make this insert statement work. Now that we have initialized our prepared statement object, we simply need to execute it. That is achieved by using the execute function from the prepared statement object. At this point, when this code runs, it will execute the insert statement. We will utilize the select statement that we made earlier, so we can check if we are successful in our attempt. You may notice that I have already concatenated 2 more get strings in our loop. This will help us appreciate the upcoming results better. Once we run this, notice that there will be a new order ID at the bottom of the list. That means we were able to insert a new record into our table. Now, let's try to update our latest record by using the update statement. We just need to change this insert statement into an update statement. Afterwards, there's nothing else to change, and we can run this class and see the results immediately. Notice that the values were updated in accordance to our update statement. The last thing to try now is the delete statement. Just like before, we just need to change the string parameter here into a delete statement. I will try to delete our latest record to see if it will be deleted. All set. Now we run our code. And there we have it. The last record was deleted. And that wraps up our tutorial for executing SQL queries. There are other things to consider, like maybe creating separate functions for these statements. How you optimize will be completely up to you. Thank you very much, and I hope you continue to support this channel. Please subscribe and see you on our next episode of Make It Work.